Thank you, Catherine, and welcome everyone. I am in Canberra on Ngunnawal Ngambri lands, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. So, I'm a physicist married to an economist. I'm deeply connected to the notion of exponential growth. This is where the rate of change, how something grows, is proportional to how something big it is. For my wife, this is known as inflation. It's also at the core of the nuclear reactions that drive the exploding stars we call supernovae that I and Saul Perlmutter, who we'll hear from next, study. The world has become used to exponential growth during COVID, where the more people who have COVID translates to more people getting COVID. In all these cases, the exponential growth happens until something changes or typically breaks. In the case of economic inflation, these days, reserve banks intervene, raise interest rates, and slow down the creation of money. Eventually, the inflation has nowhere to go, although it's not very pleasant, as all of us are finding out right now. For supernovae, nuclear reactions happen at an increasing rate until almost the entire star is burned through nuclear fusion, and the reactions have to stop. It just runs out. And for COVID, the transmission slowed down with a combination of people isolating themselves, or for those who did not, they got the disease and either got very, very sick and died or gained immunity. A feature of pure exponential growth is that the doubling time is constant over time. And that doesn't sound special, but it is much faster than most things we are used to in life. Something is not really important, and then bam, before you can react, it has overwhelmed you. In 1804, after 100,000 years, the Earth reached 1 billion people. 126 years later, in 1930, it had doubled in size to 2 billion. In 1974, 44 years later, it doubled again to 4 billion. And last year, it doubled again to 8 billion in just 48 years. So the Earth's population has exponentially grown since 1930, with a doubling time of approximately 45 years, with 3 doublings, a factor of 8 in 220 years. But humanity's water consumption has, during those 220 years, not doubled 3 times, it had doubled 4 times. That's an increase of 16. And energy consumption, well, that's doubled 5 times over that same period. That's a factor of 32 times increase. And these are significant numbers because we have gone from humans not having too much of an effect on the Earth system pre-1950 to our population and its consumption affecting the planet and us as well. That is, the Earth cannot obviously support another doubling in size of us, and it is not clear without major technical advances it can support our current size indefinitely as well. But on the other side, human fertility is taking a nosedive as education and income increases around the world. And it seems quite likely the Earth's population will peak in the next few decades. But the results will be highly uneven. The advanced economies, which are highly consumptive, will decrease in population, with all of the growth happening in the poorest countries. And while this will likely slow the growth of consumption of the Earth, consumption still seems set to grow for a while, further taxing the Earth in the decades to come. And based on human history, we should be worried. How much the emerging economies can remain stable facing changes in climate, sea level, water resources, and environmental degradation is unclear. But clearly there are risks of large-scale instabilities in the developing world that might lead to famine, conflict, and mass migration. But the world's advanced economies are also heading into uncharted waters with huge demographic shifts, where the ratio of workers to dependents seems likely to drop precipitously, potentially leading to a pressure of maintaining standards of living, and where there will be dramatic shifts of economic power away from older advanced economies to younger emerging economies. These types of forces have historically created political instabilities that have led to conflict. Now, with all that, I do not believe our situation is hopeless. While it is difficult to guarantee everyone on the planet will be better off than their parents, sort of the panacea that has been true for most of the world over the past 75 years, which has, of course, been the most peaceful in recorded historical times, human ingenuity and technology are growing exponential as well, and much more quickly. Moore's law has seen the doubling time for most computational technology set at 2 years. So there has been a 10 million time increase in computational power just since 1970. The amount of solar energy per dollar you get has doubled every 5 years since 1975, or that's more than 1,000 time increase since 1970. And revolutions are happening in biology as well, where we can sequence DNA 1 billion times more cheaply than in just the year 2000. And thanks to CRISPR-Cas9, synthesize any DNA sequence we want cheaply to study, modify, and even now create life. This technology has the potential to deliver energy, food, and really all of the things we need to increase the carrying capacity of the Earth to accommodate the 10 billion people we are likely to have on it by mid-century. But this technology also has a dark side. After World War II, it was only the exponential runaway of nuclear chain reactions that really posed a self-delivered existential threat to civilization. And that threat remains and is at least as big now as it has ever been, even at the height of the Cold War. And there are new technological threats. The advances in AI are unsettling. Massified smart weapons, like something from a Star Wars droid army, are now seemingly possible and starting to emerge in the conflicts around the world. Weapons of mass destruction of the future have the potential to actually be many small normal weapons. And the emergence of AI also has the potential to destabilize society through massive misinformation, or quite frankly, just through simply through employment upheaval. The creation of lethal biological pathogens already seems possible, and the militarization of this new technology seems ripe to occur given the current state of knowledge. COVID, followed then by the Ukraine invasion, has shown that the prosperous, globally connected world is highly vulnerable to shocks. And we have so many sources of new shocks from climate change, environmental degradation, disruptive and potentially destructive technology, not to mention the large demographic and geopolitical changes. We need to be worried. How does humanity manage the inevitable shocks, use our rapidly increasing technological prowess so that we can live happily on an Earth that I'm sorry to say is not getting any bigger, and avoid using the increasingly large number of technological possibilities for our own mass destruction? Well, we need to act collectively as a globe and make good decisions. Decisions not just around the short-term political needs of each of our nations, but decisions that work for the global system of humanity for decades to come. And there is a path where we transition to a low-carbon world, where new technology provides the education, food, energy, and other products that each human needs to be well, and to not take away more than Mother Earth can provide. Where the population of the world starts to decline, and the future concerns are much more about getting our fertility up, not down. But it will require collective decision-making where nations work together, and for many rich people to give up a little bit so humanity can prosper. And war, we cannot stay on the path to sustainability with war. So we must make sure that no more wars ever start. I honestly do not know how to get global collective decision-making, but today's event is a chance to take a step in that direction. What I do know is that we have reached the limits of expansion of humanity without collective decision-making, and we are seeing a world that will either change or break. So Sol and my Nobel Prizes were for discovering the accelerating expansion of the universe. The universe is exponentially expanding, doubling in size every 10 billion years. The universe, it turns out, is the one thing that can double forever without breaking. But let's never forget that this is not true for us. Thank you.